Some men punch, others destroy, but only a few hit with the force of history itself. George Foreman wasn't just a heavyweight. He was a storm, a wrecking ball in gloves, a force of nature that turned champions into shadows. From the brutal demolition of Joe Frazier to his jaw-dropping comeback at 45, Big George redefined what it meant to be great. Before we step into the ring with one of boxing's most dominant forces, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell, because this is more than just a boxing story. This is the legend of George Foreman. Let's get started. Born in the small town of Marshall, Texas, on January 10, 1949, Foreman's journey would take him from troubled youth to Olympic champion, from heavyweight boxing legend to beloved entrepreneur and minister, creating one of the most remarkable second acts in American sports history. Growing up in Houston's Fifth Ward with 6 siblings, young George faced significant challenges from the start. Though raised by J.D. Foreman, who had married his mother when he was just a small child, his biological father was Leroy Moorehead, a detail that added complexity to his formative years. By his own admission in later autobiographies, his youth was marked by trouble and misdirection. At 15, he dropped out of school and, for a time, survived as a street mugger in Houston's tough neighborhoods. But fate intervened at age 16 when he, watching television one day, saw an advertisement for the Job Corps that would change the trajectory of his life. Convincing his mother to sign him up, he joined the program that helped him earn his GED while learning valuable trades as a carpenter and bricklayer. It was during his time at Job Corps in Pleasanton, California, that Foreman discovered boxing, setting aside his earlier admiration for football star Jim Brown to pursue the sweet science. His boxing journey began with the glint of Olympic gold. In 1968, the young fighter who had discovered boxing just a year earlier stunned the world in Mexico City. Standing across the ring from him in the Olympic finals was Jonas Čepulis, a seasoned Lithuanian fighting for the Soviet Union. At 29 years old with over 220 amateur fights to his name, Čepulis had a decade more experience than the 19-year-old Foreman. None of that mattered once the bell rang. Foreman's raw power left Čepulis bleeding in the first round, and by the second, the referee had seen enough, stopping the fight to award Foreman the gold medal. In a moment that would become one of the most enduring images of his career, Foreman walked around the ring carrying a small American flag, bowing to the crowd. Years later, even after winning multiple world heavyweight championships, he would maintain that this Olympic triumph remained the achievement he was most proud of in his boxing career. Behind this historic victory lay a remarkably brief but impressive amateur career. Foreman had won his first amateur fight less than 2 years earlier, scoring a first-round knockout in the Parks Diamond Belt tournament. His development was accelerated by sparring sessions with former world heavyweight champion Sonny Liston in July 1968. He later recalled Liston as, "No doubt the scariest human being I've met in the ring, the only man to make me back up consistently." With just 20 amateur bouts under his belt, Foreman headed to the Olympics, carrying a 16-4 record and the guidance of his trainer Robert "Pappy" Galt. Fresh from Olympic glory, he turned professional in 1969, announcing his arrival with a 3-round knockout of Donald Walheim in New York City. What followed was nothing short of a demolition tour. Foreman fought 13 times that first year, winning all bouts and ending 11 by knockout. The pattern continued in 1970 as he claimed 12 more victories, 11 by knockout, while steadily increasing the caliber of his opposition. Among his victims was Gregorio Peralta, the world's 10th-ranked heavyweight, whom he defeated by decision at Madison Square Garden. Though victorious, the fight revealed a potential vulnerability. Foreman struggled somewhat against Peralta's fast counterpunching combined with an assertive boxing style. By 1971, he stood undefeated at 32-0 with 29 knockouts. The boxing world took notice. Both the World Boxing Association and World Boxing Council ranked him as their #1 contender. The stage was set for a climactic showdown with Joe Frazier, the undefeated and undisputed world heavyweight champion who had recently defeated Muhammad Ali in their first meeting. Despite Foreman's superior size, reach, and unblemished record, the boxing establishment considered him the underdog. What happened next would shock the world. On January 22, 1973, in Kingston, Jamaica, in an event dubbed the Sunshine Showdown, Foreman unleashed one of the most devastating performances in heavyweight championship history. ABC broadcaster Howard Cosell's call became instantly iconic as he shouted, "Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier!" Foreman sent the previously undefeated Frazier to the canvas 6 times within 2 rounds. Though Frazier courageously rose after each knockdown, referee Arthur Mercant eventually called a halt to the one-sided destruction. At 24 years old, he was the heavyweight champion of the world. As champion, Foreman developed a reputation as aloof and antisocial, rarely engaging with the press and often responding to questions with little more than a sneer. He later admitted he was deliberately emulating former champion Sonny Liston's intimidating persona. Inside the ring, however, Foreman let his fists do all the talking needed. His first title defense in Tokyo against Puerto Rican heavyweight champion Jose Roman lasted just 2 minutes, one of the fastest knockouts in heavyweight championship history. His second defense against Ken Norton, who had broken Ali's jaw in their first encounter, ended in a second-round stoppage. The boxing world dubbed this overwhelming performance the Caracas Caper, and Foreman's record now stood at a perfect 40-0 with 37 knockouts. Then came Zaire and the Rumble in the Jungle, the historic October 30th, 1974 showdown with Muhammad Ali that would forever change Foreman's life and legacy. When they met in the ring, Foreman entered as the heavy favorite, having obliterated the same men, Frazier and Norton, who had given Ali such difficult fights. But Ali employed what would later become known as the rope-a-dope strategy, shielding his head while absorbing vicious body blows and peppering Foreman's face with counterpunches. As the rounds progressed, Foreman's punches, which had dispatched so many opponents within minutes, gradually lost their steam against Ali's defensive shell. By mid-bout, an increasingly confident Ali began taunting the exhausted champion relentlessly. Late in the 8th round, Ali suddenly sprang off the ropes with a series of progressively harder right hooks to the side and back of Foreman's head, followed by a combination of a solid left hook and straight right to the jaw that sent Foreman windmilling to the canvas for the first time in his career. Foreman later reflected simply, "It just wasn't my night." Though Foreman sought a rematch, Ali never granted him another opportunity. After a year-long hiatus, he attempted to regenerate public interest with an exhibition event billed as Foreman vs. 5, where he would fight 5 opponents in one night. The spectacle backfired dramatically when the crowd booed Foreman and chanted, "Ali, Ali, Ali," throughout the evening. His true comeback began in 1976 when he faced Ron Lyle, the world's 5th-ranked heavyweight. What followed was an epic slugfest that would be named Fight of the Year by the Ring magazine. The 4th round erupted into one of boxing's most brutal exchanges, with both men knocked down multiple times. In the 5th round, after trading heavy shots, Foreman delivered a dozen unanswered blows until Lyle collapsed to the canvas for the final time. Foreman closed out 1976 with several victories, including a rematch with Joe Frazier. But 1977 would bring a profound transformation that would alter the course of his life. After facing Jimmy Young in Puerto Rico, where Foreman lost by unanimous decision, he collapsed in his dressing room, overcome by exhaustion and heat stroke. What happened next would transform not just his career, but his entire being. As he lay there, Foreman experienced what he would later describe as a near-death journey into a hellish, frightening place of nothingness and despair. Sensing himself at death's threshold, the previously non-religious Foreman began to plead desperately with God. In that moment of darkness, he felt God asking him to change his life and ways, to which Foreman responded with his first declaration of faith. "I don't care if this is death. I still believe there is a God." This profound spiritual awakening led Foreman to become a born-again Christian. Though he never formally announced his retirement from boxing, he simply walked away from the sport that had defined him. Instead of training in gymnasiums, Foreman took to street corners, preaching the gospel before eventually becoming the ordained minister of the Church of the Lord Jesus Christ in Houston. For the next decade, the man once known for his intimidating scowl and devastating punches devoted himself entirely to his congregation and family, opening a youth center that carried his name. Yet the story of George Foreman was far from over. In 1987, after a full decade away from the ring, he stunned the boxing world by announcing his comeback at the unlikely age of 38. His stated motivation was practical and heartfelt. He needed to raise money for his youth center, which had consumed much of his previous boxing earnings. There was also another ambition lingering in his mind, a dream bout with the ferocious young champion Mike Tyson. Few gave his comeback serious consideration, especially when he weighed a hefty 267 pounds and appeared visibly out of shape for his first fight back. While critics dismissed the comeback as misguided, Foreman countered with a philosophy that would define his second career. He wanted to prove that age was not a barrier to achieving one's goals, that turning 40 was not a death sentence. The Foreman who emerged in this second act was noticeably different from the younger version. He could no longer throw the rapid combinations of his youth, and his balance sometimes betrayed him after launching big punches. Yet he remained capable of delivering devastating single blows, and remarkably, the late-round fatigue that had plagued him as a young fighter had improved. Now, Foreman could comfortably compete for a full 12 rounds, attributing this stamina to a more relaxed fighting style, unburdened by the nervous tension that had consumed him in his first career. As his comeback gained momentum, Foreman underwent another transformation, this time in the public eye. The once aloof, intimidating figure who had scowled at reporters was replaced by a cheerful, affable personality who engaged in good-natured self-deprecation on The Tonight Show. He even mended fences with Muhammad Ali, forging a genuine friendship with the man who had dealt him his first professional defeat. Following Ali's blueprint, Foreman extended his celebrity beyond boxing, most notably through his endorsement of the immensely successful George Foreman Grill. In 1991, he received an opportunity to challenge undisputed heavyweight champion Evander Holyfield for the world title. Few boxing experts gave the 42-year-old challenger any chance against the prime champion. Though he failed to knock down the tough, agile champion and lost clearly on points, Foreman shocked observers by lasting the full 12 rounds in a remarkably competitive fight. 2 years later, Foreman received another title shot, this time for the vacant WBO championship against young power puncher Tommy Morrison, who outboxed Foreman from long range to win a clear unanimous decision. Then, in 1994, destiny called again, when Michael Moore defeated Holyfield for the IBF and WBA titles. Foreman saw another opportunity. On November 5th in Las Vegas, symbolically wearing the same red trunks he had worn against Ali 20 years earlier, he entered the ring as a substantial underdog against a champion 19 years his junior. For 9 rounds, Moore easily outboxed the plodding challenger, and Foreman trailed significantly on all scorecards entering the 10th round. But then, in an instant that would become boxing legend, Foreman caught Moore with a short right hand on the chin. The champion collapsed to the canvas and lay flat as the referee counted him out. In that moment, Foreman had accomplished the impossible, regaining the title he had lost to Muhammad Ali 2 decades before. As the arena erupted in cheers, the new champion knelt in his corner in prayer. This historic victory broke 3 records. At 45, Foreman became the oldest fighter ever to win a world championship. The 20-year interval between his championship reigns was the longest in boxing history, and the 19-year age gap between champion and challenger was the largest ever in a heavyweight title fight. His second championship reign was brief and marked by controversy with boxing authorities. After being stripped of his WBA belt for refusing to fight their mandatory challenger, he defended his remaining IBF title against German underdog Axel Schultz, winning a controversial majority decision. When the IBF ordered an immediate rematch to be held in Germany, he rejected the terms and was stripped of his last official title, though he remained recognized as the lineal heavyweight champion. Foreman fought on until 1997, when at age 48, after a controversial loss to Shannon Briggs that many observers thought Foreman had won, he had his last professional bout. Though he occasionally teased additional comebacks, including one at age 55 to prove that, like 40, it was not a death sentence. Foreman instead found success as a boxing analyst for HBO, where his insightful commentary and affable personality made him a fan favorite for 12 years, until 2004. Throughout his second career, Foreman never abandoned his spiritual calling. In fact, his religious conviction only deepened. As pastor of the Church of the Lord Jesus Christ, he led 3 services weekly, always aiming to reveal something about the Bible that his congregation didn't know. Under his leadership, the church operated the George Foreman Youth and Community Center, ministering to children and adolescents in the community. Even as his commercial success grew, he maintained that it doesn't matter what you achieve, what you accomplish in this life. The most important thing is to keep your eye on the true prize, and that's serving God. Outside the ring, he achieved perhaps even greater fame as the pitchman for the George Foreman Grill. His warm personality and trustworthy image helped sell over 100 million units worldwide by 2011. In a business move as impressive as any of his sporting achievements, Foreman sold the commercial rights to the grill for $138 million in 1999. His later years brought continued public appearances, including a stint as a contestant on the 8th season of The Masked Singer in 2022, where he performed as Venus Flytrap. He also served as an executive producer for Big George Foreman, a 2023 Christian film chronicling his sporting and spiritual journey. In his personal life, Foreman was married to Mary Joan Martelli from 1985 until his death, having had 4 previous marriages. His family was famously large, 12 children in all, including 5 sons all named George Edward Foreman, about which he explained, "I named all my sons George Edward Foreman so they would always have something in common. I say to them, if one of us goes up, then we all go up together, and if one goes down, we all go down together." Foreman's boxing legacy was secured with induction into both the World Boxing Hall of Fame and the International Boxing Hall of Fame. The International Boxing Research Organization rates him as the 8th greatest heavyweight of all time, while the Ring magazine ranked him among the 25 greatest fighters of the past 80 years and the 9th greatest puncher ever. On March 21st, 2025, at the age of 76, George Foreman passed away in Houston, leaving behind a legacy that transcended sports. A journey from troubled youth to champion, from spiritual rebirth to comeback king, from feared fighter to beloved American icon. The American Legion had recognized his patriotism and community service with its James V Day Good Guy Award in 2013, a fitting tribute to a man whose transformation touched millions and whose indomitable spirit proved that second acts in American lives can indeed be the most remarkable. George Foreman's life story, from his humble beginnings to Olympic glory, from heavyweight champion to minister, and from improbable comeback king to successful entrepreneur, stands as one of the most remarkable transformations in American sports and cultural history, a testament to reinvention and perseverance that continues to inspire long after his final bell. Before you go, don't miss out on exclusive perks. Click the link in the description to become a channel member and enjoy awesome benefits, like suggesting future video topics, getting early access to new content 48 hours before anyone else, and much more. Your support means the world and helps us keep bringing you the stories you love. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe for more amazing content. And while you're here, why not check out our deep dive into Gervonta Davis's video? Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.